Like,
There we are.
all right.
All right.
Well, there
There
you
it is.
go. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon.
I think if we must inform everybody that sees this has been a trial and error process. We did it once already. I forgot to push record.
Yeah.
So thanks to both of you for being good sports, as my incompetence makes itself very apparent.
Not at all. Feels like a regular day in our classes. You know what I mean?
Okay. So we're here again with Mr. Reyes and Miss Craighead. Hi, Miss Craighead. Thank you for joining us. And Miss Craighead is an 8th grade world history teacher, right?
Actually, U.S.
U.S. history. So 7th is world cultures, 8th is U.S. history. Okay.
Yes.
So we had chatted a little bit prior to this about you are involved in some things where you're reaching out to students and giving them a venue to kind of just get together and hang out and blow off steam and connect. Do you mind kind of telling us how that's going and what that's like?
Well, it is definitely growing, and I'm happy to do it because I've found that the kids definitely need a place where they connect and have some fun, and also to show their faces, which is huge. And so I've been doing lunch meetings about twice a week. It was actually during one of these faculty meetings where I heard somebody else was doing it. I'm like, what a great idea. So I reached out to you guys. I reached out to the kids. I'm like, there's some things we could do to make it fun, and it's definitely not academic time. So some of the things we've been doing is I play Kahoots, and some of them are like science related, but they are based on Marvel comics, and I'm actually learning in these things, and I play too, so the kids really get excited because I'm trying to compete against them. And then some other things we've been playing are Pictionary. I just got out the old Pictionary cards, and so I'll private message them, and then we'll not me because I already know what it is, but then we'll try to figure out, give them a theme, and then the kids compete sometimes in teams. Let's see, Pictionary. Oh, there's this really fun game called 5-second rule, and I've got this funny thing. It's like a timer, but it makes a weird sound, and they have to name 3 things in 5 seconds, like 3 Disney movies, but they can team up, so they really like that. So it makes them feel, it's more successful. And the old Mad Libs, that's another classic, which not all the kids are familiar. Mad Libs. Yeah. And they'll do all these crazy adjectives and nouns, and then I'll read to them, oh, well, this was about being the president of the United States. So it's really funny. So those are some things.
So the kids that you're meeting with, those are all your students? Do you the kids ever pop in that, I mean, I don't even know if this is possible, that like aren't on your roster, like, or the teacher does that? Are they limited to their roster?
Well, I'm limited to my roster. However, I actually could, because I do tutoring for the entire school for social studies. So I actually could open it up to the whole school. But I haven't gone that far yet. However, some of these kids are kind of like in pods. It seems as though there's other children that sometimes it's siblings, sometimes it's cousins, but sometimes it's friends, maybe like a pod. And so they'll say, can my friend play? And I'm like, oh, of course. So, it's not completely just my students, but they really like it. And it's just nice because they show their faces. It's good for me too.
Yeah.
It's good for me just to see people, and for it to be non-academic. That is the key. Yeah.
Yes, super important. Yeah.
And another thing that has been really nice for social emotional, I've really enjoyed, I do it sometimes with lunch club, but also I do it with my kids. I'll do every single day. I do this for attendance. I do question of the day, and I've really found that it helps them to forge bonds with each other, like to see commonalities. And like, for example, today's question was binge watching Netflix or Amazon or Hulu. And so the kids are like, oh my gosh, yeah, just recently, and they'll say, Titans, some Teen Titans or something, and then, oh my gosh, Cobra Kai, and this one girl binge watched Friends in 2 weeks. Do you guys know how many episodes that is?
That's a lot. That's like a 9-hour day.
That's like probably 250 episodes.
She did it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I'm like, how did you even fit in your homework? But it's really cool because when they do this, like another kid will go, oh my gosh, I love that show. Or no, I'm not doing that, but I'm doing this instead. Like some kids were telling me how one kid was saying, I haven't binge watched a Netflix, but I have to admit, Mrs. C, my friend and I played a Halo game and we finished one whole game. Like we beat the game in 2 days. And I'm all, what?
Well, I think it's like so cool that, because I just the menu of things that you've been willing to try, you're not necessarily like reinventing the wheel, but you're just taking what you know and applying it to this venue the best you can. And that's, I think, such a cool, I don't know, just a step in their direction that the kids appreciate, that you're coming from your place and you're respecting their place. And what I've found is the further I get into this and my own ineptness just prevents me from really relying on my own way that I used to do things. The more I learn about these kids like culture and what they're into, the more I'm really interested in it myself. It's like this, it's almost like you're an anthropologist delving into this new culture, that because the way that they consume media, the way that they interact in terms of their social, and we all know how social media has changed things, but even just like the like you said, their take on Friends, they have this fresh way of seeing the world, even though it's a familiar world to me, but now that I see it through their eyes, because they have this venue or this like almost like willingness to meet me where I'm at, because I'm just kind of like, guys, here I am with you. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not the expert anymore. And it's sort of leveled this role of authority figure out of the way for me personally a little bit. And it makes it easier for me to be interested in what they're interested in.
Right. And I do think that it's unfortunate, in the classroom, I'm really big about merit stamps, and I can't do that anymore, or the sticks, or however we try to engage. But it's also my way of giving every student the ability to talk, because this is so easy for them to shut down on this venue. And so often it's funny, they'll say, oh, my mic doesn't work, or they'll answer a question in the chat. But when I ask these questions of the day, like, what's your favorite smell? I miss the smell of popcorn. I love the smell of popcorn.
That's so random, but good.
I know, but it's just like questions like that. It gets them thinking, and they'll answer the question. So when I have a student that I never hear from, like the whole period, but they always, like seriously, 90% of the time, they'll come on and answer the question. And even if they don't want to answer it, like they can say pass.
Rob and I talked about this because I think after we met with Caitlin Riley, I was like, I think I'm going to try that. Like I'm going to try to do, have a question or some kind of like the equivalent of a circle, like a restorative circle. And Rob and I talked about, well, what if we had a kid also mediate it? So like I'll pose the question and I might type it in the chat, but then you ask for a volunteer and then there's a kid. So the whole time kids are just hearing kids' voices. And then the way I'm like halfway down, as you see the participants, and then they get to me, I'm in the middle, and it's almost like I'm just part of the group of kids. I'm not really the mediator or the authority anymore. I'm just another one of them. And it's cool because as the adult too, I would maybe be inclined to answer the question first myself to model it. But now as I put myself in that role of, okay, this other kid can mediate it, I'm in the middle and I start hearing all these kids saying things. And as they're saying it, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I have that in common with that kid. That's so awesome. Just being able to kind of be one of them. Yeah, let the
student-led activities are great. And I find the same thing. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Again, another idea that we threw around when Joe and I were speaking about these type of things was taking roll. So I have my kids take roll now. It's not so much of a struggle anymore. I notice the more I keep asking for volunteers, and I'll just sit there and say, I need a volunteer, and I'll just sit quietly, and someone will finally come on because they know the longer we sit there, I'm just gonna let it happen. I go, and I think I'll throw it out there and say, well, we could have been done with this about 2 minutes earlier if someone would have said something. So now they're more willing to get on. So I don't know if that's kind of a way to just indirectly put pressure on them to come on, but then they'll do that, and then they'll theme it. They'll say, instead of saying here, you can say your favorite color. Something like that. It's similar to what you've done. So
Cool.
it's nice. I'm glad that you're doing things like that to include the kids, and it's student centered. Yeah. And that kind of stuff really goes a long way because they feel like they're definitely empowering for a lot of them. You try to spread that around. Yeah.
And it does take a little bit of time, and I do realize that. But during these times, I don't count that towards my 40 minutes because I know I'm not supposed to go to 40 minutes, and I don't count that. I'm like, this is just student engagement. It's getting them to talk. And like I said, it might be the only time they talk to a teacher all day. They might just always be on mute. So for them to actually have some kind of voice is huge.
That two-way, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that once we go back to the classroom, that these students are going to remember some of those things. Because my 8th graders did know each other last year, but some of them are telling me, oh, I had that kid in my blah, blah class. And so now they're remembering, oh, yeah. So now they're in this class, and hopefully that bond will remain when they come back. They'll have some of those memories about commonalities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Another thing I wanted to mention was, as a colleague, you're a person who every time an email comes to there'll be all the teachers that a kid shares, and then you'll have sent it, and then it'll have this really very detailed, observant, compassionate story of the kid that might have been struggling. And it might be one kid among, say, 20 that you have on your roster, but that are in a similar grade situation. But then you see this kid's story, and you're like, oh, that explains so much. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have gotten that story unless you had gotten the story for us. And so I thought maybe just for a few minutes left, you could maybe touch on your either process or your motivation or your idea of how you go about delving into that territory where you're going to have to get a parent on the phone, knowing that the situation that's going on in that kid's household might not necessarily be one that the parent's even going to want to pick up a phone call from somebody they're not sure of who it is. But what are the ways that you get that engagement? Because I think a lot of us are intimidated by that, or just maybe don't have the time. So thank you for doing it. And what's going through your mind as you do that?
Well, we're not at school anymore. And so I am using my cell phone, which I know some teachers might not feel comfortable with. And I initially I was blocking it, and I did that at first, but now I just call on my cell phone. And parents are much more willing to pick up if it's not a blocked number. I know I am also. And so far it's been pretty good. I tend to call more in the evening hours because I know that's when parents are going to be more available. However, I just make that call, and even I learned
that's daring. That's daring.
It is.
But they're there. You're right.
And I have to say, I've been doing this for a few years, but especially now, I haven't had, luckily, any bad phone calls back. But I think because I come at it with, I want to help your child be successful. Like I always start off like that. I want to know, what can I do to work with you to help your student? So I don't come off in a, your kid hasn't done this, your kid hasn't done that. I don't do that at all. I just give my services. And then I tell them, this is how I'm available for tutoring in the morning and then after school. And I also do attempt, when I start the phone call, to say something good. And so even with those questions of the day, sometimes I'll say, well, yeah, I heard that, one of your kids' favorite things is to play Connect 4 with your family. So I'll have that little bit of insight, and then that also helps me build a connection with the parent. And even if they speak Spanish, because I worked at Chula for so many years, I do have limited Spanish skills. And I have found that if you try at least to speak Spanish, a lot of times the parent will speak more English because they realize that you're trying, so then they try.
They're like, okay, we got to get this over with. I'm going to speak English.
I know. Or limited English, and it works. Or I even a lot of times I'll also include the kid. So I'll say, can you bring the kid into the conversation? Can we be on speaker? So not just for support, but then I'll say, okay, now, did we do this? And then the kid will have to account for it in front of the parent. So it's not like there's a miscommunication when I have the kid involved in the conversation.
Yeah, Rob, I think it's nice you start off that way. Sorry, Joe.
I was going to say, Rob,
if you start off that way, preface the way you do it is perfect, and it just definitely works better because you're I don't even know if this is the right word, but like kind of disarming the whole situation, diffusing any type of negative feeling of the meeting and coming into it and saying it's just solution based. It's just we're just here to talk about what we need to do to help you. That's all it is. Because then, I think I might have even said in one of those, you're not going to the principal's office. This is all just to help you, and to say, we're here to help you. This is why we're here for the meeting. I'll even ask the kid, do you know why we're meeting right now? Do you know why your mom and I and you are here? And kind of let them speak a little bit. And so a lot of times they say, no, I don't know. Or I'm not sure. Or they feel like they're going to be in trouble. I say, well, you're not in trouble. At least not with me. So let's just get that cleared up right now, And then a lot of times I'll get like the parent will giggle. Well, they'll say something like, "Well, they're not in trouble with you, Mr. Reyes, but with me, they're in trouble." And it's fine, it's a parent, so we just continue from there. But similar.
Yeah, I think both of you are very just great assets for us in that parent outreach department, and. There's probably teachers that are watching this that are going, there's no way I'm doing that. And I think it doesn't mean that you have to go out and do it right now the way I feel it. Like maybe there's things, maybe right after school, you've got another commitment, right? Or you got your own kids that are very needy and there's just not that time. But I think that if all of us keep in mind that maybe at some stage in our career, we will be available in that capacity, and the amount of impact that it has, is really for me something to keep in mind as I progress in my career as a teacher and think about, okay, maybe someday I'll be that person who's finding those stories and really not just helping that kid, but helping that whole family by tapping into this strength, that once we're connected there, it's like that's going to make all the difference possibly.
Right. And I do find when you do try to make it about being successful, that's when I find out the stories. And I know that it helps me to have a better understanding of the student. And so that is why I try to share it with the group, including the counselors. So, they've got so many people that they're responsible for. And since I have that, every other day connection, I think I find out a lot more and I see it, so it also allows the counselors then to jump in and give further assistance if that is needed.